Hi, on today's Deal Talk, I'm going to talk about a no-money wholesale double closing same-day transaction that netted the investor $629,484.78 net profit. As I always do in the Deal Talks, I split the HUDs in half so they're easier to see. This was two properties bought from the same seller on the same HUD statement. Purchase price $4,950,000. Now remember, I said it's a no money transaction, so watch what happens here. These are the closing costs on the second page. They don't matter. I'm just showing you what the HUDs look like. These are the actual closing HUD statements for this A to B transaction. This is the bottom half of the first page, A to B side. $200,000 earnest money deposit by the investor buyer. Now, if you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, Dave, you said this is a no money transaction. I'm going to show you shortly where he borrowed the $200,000 and paid it back on the B to C leg. There's a $31,428.60 rent credit. So immediately you can tell from this that the structure, there's two properties here. This one has rental income. As a good investor, he asked for a repair credit on the HUD, which meant the listing agent still received a commission on the $50,000. So always on these A to B and B to C HUDs, the left side is the buyer side, right side is the seller side. So the seller gets a debit on his side and he credits the investor buyer on the B side. The seller gives any security deposits as a credit to the buyer who holds them against the tenants leaving later. This case is $32,000. So you get an idea that this rental unit is a pretty good sized rental unit, but again, it's only one of two properties. This is the transactional funding needed. So to close this with no money in the deal, a transactional funder such as myself, or in this case myself and a couple of other people, came in with $4.6 million to close the transaction. This is side 2 of the A to B HUD, and what I wanted to show you here is very simply a $148,500 commission. Now you already know that it's $1.4 million net profit, so in this case the investor made 10 times what the agent made as a real estate commission. And I'm sure this listing agent felt very good about making a $148,000 commission. Here's the bottom half of the A to B HUD, second page. There's the closing fees. These are for both the buyer, investor, and the seller. And in this case, they happen to be larger for the buyer, much smaller for the seller. It's arbitrary. It doesn't make a difference. There's the title insurance for this transaction. Now remember, this is two transactions, so that title insurance is to insure both of the properties' chain of title. This is where the closing agent makes his money. He gets, depending on his commission rate, 70 to 80% or more of this amount back from the title insurer. Notice these legal fees, $150,000 and $234,000. This is a probate situation. These are attorney's fees for the probates for both sides. There's two parties involved selling this property. Not just two properties, two parties. That's a partnership distribution on the HUD to one of those partners. So in effect what he's doing, he's getting his money on the closing, and whatever's left over will go to the other partner. So at the end of this A to B transaction that you just saw, the $4 million that funded it, the A to B closing is done and both properties are fully paid for. Not just the one property, both properties. That's very important. And the B to C closing you're about to see is for the sale of just one of the properties and happens to be the one with the rental income. The second property was a single family home. We'll talk about that later. So this is the B to C HUD top half, side 1. Again, this is one of the two properties that were purchased. The sale of the first one. This is the sale price, $5.8 million. Now you can see the closing costs are $190,000. We're going to look at those briefly in a moment. But again, the investor is now the seller in this case, so his right side of the HUD statement is what he's responsible for. So now we're going to look at the bottom half of the HUD. First thing we notice is the buyer put up a $350,000 earnest money deposit. In the event he didn't close and he lost his $350,000, the original investor on the A to B leg would have lost his $200,000 deposit and still would have made $150,000 without ever having closed the transaction. The important part here is always get more money on the B to C escrow deposit than you put up on the A to B leg. The buyer coming in to get this property financed $3.5 million. That shows it right there. That's where it is on the B to C HUD. Now, if you remember the security deposit credit, well, here it is, because now the seller, investor, has to pass that on to the new end buyer who's getting the financing. This is the transactional funding. As you can see the numbers, and you can see in there's a $200,000 payback also. That makes it a no money transaction. In this case, the buyer at the last minute got the investor seller to give him a $25,000 inspection credit on the closing statement. This is the bottom line: $629,484.78 net profit. Now, typically, whatever this profit is, you would deduct the amount of the earnest money deposit. In this case, however, the $200,000 earnest money deposit that the original investor buyer put up is being deducted above there in the transactional funding. So that $629,000 is a net profit, no money transaction. Here's the B2C, page 2 of the HUD. You'll notice that the original investor buyer, in this case, paid an agent $232,000 to bring this end buyer. Again, one property, but he paid a commission, and the commission was 4%, as you can see above. That's included. After that commission's deducted, his profit is still $600,000 and change. In this case, he made 5 times as much as the buyer's agent in this case. This is the B2C HUD bottom portion, again, side 2. I want you to see the legal fees here, $17,000. Here's title insurance. Now remember, you pay title insurance on the HUD on the A to B side, and somebody pays it on the B to C side also. Because it's a larger amount, the $5.8 million, the amount of the title insurance is larger. That's why the difference in the price. Another legal fee. Now these legal fees are going back. On the first one, it's on the seller side. In this case, it's on the buyer side. Here's some additional transactional funding fees. There were enough people involved in this thing. They're all mentioned on an addendum page. So now at the end of the B2C closing that you just saw the HUD statement for, the remaining property is fully paid for. Remember, I said this is a commercial property. You saw the rent security deposits, and you saw the $629,000 profit. Well, the question is, what is the real profit on this transaction? It's not $629,000. So in this Deal Talk segment, we're now going to look at the second half of the transaction. Remember, commercial property on the first one, and now the free and clear property, which was a single family home, is being sold. Sale price was $790,000. As a matter of fact, this particular property was a complete teardown. Torn down, and a McMansion was built by another investor who came in, but he paid $790,000 for that second property. So this no money wholesale transaction, $790,000 sale price on the second half, the total net profit was over $1.4 million. And as I ask this question all the time, why not you?